What's going on, everyone? This is Orock with Ming Tech Media, and I am back at you with another video. And in today, we're going to be discussing the object-oriented programming basics in Java. All right. And right now, I have my IntelliJ open. If you don't know how to download or install IntelliJ, just check out my previous video. I explain how to do everything. So we're going to open up a new project, right? And my video is going to be a bit different today because what I really want to do is I want to cover a bunch of topics in object-oriented programming. So I'm going to do more breadth than depth. I'm not going to go deep into each one because I want to just introduce you to these topics so that you know what they are, how to use them, and how to use them in a professional situation, like how a professional developer might use them. But yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into it. So I'm going to name this project banking app because I want to model like a real world application that you might work at. And, you know, banking applications heavily, they use Java. So I thought this would be an appropriate example. So I'm going to go banking app, right? I'm going to use Java, IntelliJ. I'm going to use Java 8 for now. Do I want to use Java 11? Do we have, I think I have just Java 8 installed. So let's just use Java 8. That's going to be good enough for what we want to do. We're not going to go into too many Java 17 topics or, you know, things just as of yet. Yeah. So it's loading all the files. So down here in source, where we have main, first of all, I want to explain just a little bit what object-oriented programming is, just in case you're new to it. So object-oriented programming, or OOP, as its short form and acronym is sort of a programming paradigm that revolves around the concept of objects, which can contain both data and behavior in Java. We have OOP, and it's used extensively, and we use it to create complex software applications. And, you know, an object in Java is just an instance of a class. So you define a class, and that class defines the data and the behavior of a particular object. For example, if you were building like an e-commerce application, you might want to have a class called product. And that product class is going to contain information about each product, such as the name, the price, the description, availability, that kind of thing, right? So in Java, each object has its own state, which are like the values and the variables, and behavior, you know, like the methods that it can perform. And I'm going to explain all of this just in case this is just very unclear to you right now, right? So the state is represented by instance variables, and the behavior is represented by methods. So a car, for example, would have an instance variable such as a make or model, and this is just the data about the car, like the make, the model, the year, and then the methods, which is the behavior, which would be like start engine, stop engine, drive, you know, park, if it's like, you know, one of those self-driving cars like they're making these days in 2023 and beyond. And, you know, we organize this code into objects with their own state and behavior, and Java allows developers to write more modular, reusable, and maintainable code. So to help us, you know, I don't want to be too long-winded here, to help us understand OOP more effectively, we'll be working with a hypothetical banking application, and our application has three entities. We're going to model, you know, just like I said, I'm going to model a banking application. So we're going to have an account, we're going to have a branch, and we're going to have a rewards program. So let's start by defining all these entities, and I'm going to like speak to them as I sort of go along. So you can right-click your source package here. Let me just right-click that. And we're going to create a new package. Go to New, and we're going to create package. Now, just in case you're wondering, packages in Java, they're just a way of organizing classes into groups, right? So in our example, we could organize our classes into a package called banking, which is what I'll do, banking, right? And to actually define a class, you have like the full path of the class, right? Which would be like org, like banking. Let's just keep it simple for now. We have our banking package, right? So in our banking package, we would have a new class, which we would create, right? And that class, we're going to start with an account class. All right. So we have our public account, class account. I'm going to explain what all these keywords mean, right? So, yeah, usually you'd have like a longer package name, which includes, the application, and other names that precede the actual package name. But I want to keep it simple here. But in professional applications, you'd see like the full path name. But this is a very simple rudimentary application, and I don't want to overcomplicate things or confuse you because Java can be a verbose language, right? So yeah, let's start explaining things. We have our public class, and then we're going to create a bunch of variables. So we're going to say private int, and then we'll have a count number, and this is called int, and this is called camel casing here. So you have, we usually, this is the naming convention of how we sort of name variables. If it's two words, we sort of start with a lowercase and join them together, sort of like a compound word. And the first letter of the next word would start with a capital letter, right? So remember that. We also have snake case, which is like underscores. But here and in most applications, when you're naming variables, just like this one, in a class, you'd use a very descriptive name and start with a lowercase and use camel case. So we have that, and then we have private. We'll have a double, and we'll have balance. And if it's just one word, you just use lowercase. And I'm going to explain all these things really quickly, after I'm done writing them out. And then we have public account. And in that, and I'm going to type this out, but for the next class, I'm going to show you how you can just like automatically create this, because as a Java developer or just a software engineer in general, you're going to be making a lot of classes, a lot of methods and things like that. So it's easier if you just use shortcuts, which I'll show you. But I wanted to write everything out just so you can see it. So yeah, here is the constructor, which basically constructors are ways in which we can initialize an object. So basically, constructors are used to create objects of a class. So in our classes, we have defined constructors to take in parameters, which I'm going to define in a second, which are just these member variables, right? And set the initial values of the variables in this class, right? So I'm going to just basically take the int account. I can just copy this from here and just paste it. Again, I'm going to show you a quicker way of doing all of this, which would literally do this in seconds, but I want to just type it out so, you can just kind of just see what I'm doing and just not think this is magic, right? So we have our, our member variables, and then we do this, which is a special keyword, which I'll explain in another video, but basically it just refers to this class that you're operating in, or this, scope of this block scope. Again, going to explain that in a different tutorial. Account number, and that's equal to, and the thing I like about IntelliJ is there's a lot of helpful hints. So it knows that you're in a constructor, and it's giving you all of the sort of helpful code completion hints. So it makes coding a lot faster. So yeah, this is our constructor class. And the next thing I want to explain are a concept called getters and setters. So getters and setters are used to access and modify the values of the different variables in a class. So in our class, we define getters and setters for each of these variables, which I'll do in a second. And then getters allow us to retrieve the values of variables, while setters allow us to set those values. So I'm going to, I don't want this tutorial to be super long, so I'm going to show you those shortcuts actually right now. So you go to right click, just under, your code here, and you go to generate, right? And a screen comes, a little drop down comes up, and you say getter and setters. Let me see, because that was getter and setter is a plural. Getter and setter. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you have your balance and your account number. So you want to just generate that, and you click OK, and it automatically generates these methods for you, right? Methods or functions, as they're called, are used to perform actions. So they're usually named some sort of verb or begin with some sort of verb like get or set or do or, something like that along those lines or run. There's they start with a verb usually, and that's like a naming convention. And what they do is they perform an action in the class. So in our account class, we have like, methods for, a constructor, which that actually doesn't really have like it's a method, yeah, but it doesn't have any sort of verb in front of it because that's kind of like a special method that initializes the class. So it has to be named after the class, right? So that's the only, really one of the few instances in which you wouldn't really name a method without some sort of verb that kind of defines what it's doing, because again, this is an action sort of thing. So yeah, we have our, constructors, our getter for our account number and our getter for our balance, and which we actually did not include. So yeah, we'll do that right now. Getters and setters. I thought I selected that. So let me go to generate, getter and setter. Yeah, so, okay, now we have getters and setters for everything. So we have our getter and setter for our account balance, and we have our getter and setter for our account number. So that's going to allow the application to retrieve our getter, our account number, and our account balance, right? So I'm going to create another class here under this banking package. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a branch class because I said we're going to be working with 3 entities. And then these entities are going to be branch, the rewards program, and the account. So we're going to say branch, right? And we're going to, code everything a little quicker this time because, again, I want to show you how to code quick and save time. So the only thing you're really going to have to, really type out is your instance variables. But everything else, you're going to, just use one of the code completion sort of things that IntelliJ offers you. So we have branch name here, right? And then private string branch address. All right, so we have our branch name and our branch address set up here. So we can just, right click and generate a constructor. So we're gonna right click and then we have a constructor, and using these fields, can I select all? I'm using a different version of IntelliJ now. It's hopefully this is okay. I have to like hold down and press shift here in a Mac, but I usually use like a Linux, for work every day. And there's like these check boxes, and you can check those options. So depending on which version of IntelliJ you're using, they'll have that. So if you just have that and there's no check boxes, just use Shift, hold it down, and then select all the options that you want, or Command if you're on a Mac, and hold it down and select the options that you want. So we have our constructor generated, and again, this is initializing an object. And then we can also have our getters and setters, which we generate automatically as well, automatically and automagically with IntelliJ. Again, you can either hold Command and then select everything, or select the ones you want, because you might have a lot of member variables that you don't want to create getters and setters for everything. So Command, holding down Command, you can select the individuals you want, or if you just hold Shift and go down to the end. In this case, I only have 2. So you go down to the end and you select whichever ones you want, and then you add that and you click OK. So now we have our getters and setters for our branch name and our branch address, those 2 member variables in this branch class, right? So the last class we're going to create the rewards program. So let's go back to that banking package, and then we're going to say new, and then we're going to say Java class, and then we're going to say rewards program. Right, and that's going to be new Java class. Create that within the banking package, and we're gonna run through this really quick here. So we're gonna have our private, right, and int, and we're gonna say points, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come down here. We're gonna right click. We're gonna go to generate. Again, like in the other example or the other classes, we're going to generate our constructor. We only have 1 member variable here, so that's all we can select. Click OK. Then come down, right click again, generate getter and setter. We only have one member variable. Boom, we're done. So these are the basic setup of our class, right? So here we've defined three classes: account, branch, and rewards program. And each one of these classes has some private variables and some methods that allow us to interact with those variables. So let's go through each one of these concepts in OOP. Again, this is just how you create a Java class. And we're going to sort of go through each one of these concepts because I went through a lot of things quickly here, but I want to really explain them in depth. So I'm going to start like with the idea of a class. What is a class? A class is just basically a blueprint for creating objects. In our banking application, we have defined three classes, like I said, which are the account, the branch, and a rewards program that represents the entities of our application, right? So variables, what are variables? These are used to store data in a class, and these we usually define first when we, after we write our class completely out, our class name out. And so basically variables, like in our account class, let's go back to our account class, account.java. So like in our account class, we have like a few variables, which are, our account number and our account balance, or our balance, right? And, like I said, that's data. That's data. We could have other things as well. We could have like, creation date and, give that, a date type or a local date type. We can have, account age. We could have, account holder, and that's just your name, or account holder first name and account holder last name. We could actually, be way more specific. But again, I just wanted to just show you just some basic rudimentary examples. So if you look in our rewards program, we have just that, one variable, which is int points. And, we're going to create correlations between all these classes very soon. So those are variables. And I kind of already just, kind of went through what methods were. They're just, used to perform actions in our class, and they're usually preceded by some verb like get, set, or do, run, that kind of thing. You'll see that a lot in applications. And, we have some down here. We have our get account number, and that's basically just returning your account number. And we have a set account number, returning your account number. And then we have the, get balance, getting the balance, and then you can set the balance with these methods. And I want to, because I'm sure you're probably wondering if you're new to OOP or new to programming, what these public and private, what those mean. Those are called access modifiers, right? And access modifiers, they're used to control the visibility of a variable and methods in a class. So in our classes, we have marked our variables as private, right? And the reason we want to do that because we don't want to have these, later or later somewhere in our application accidentally set or, modify the account number or balance or other sensitive data. We only want to modify it or set them using these methods. So or using the constructor rather. Once we initialize it, the only way we want to be able to change these things or set these things is using one of these methods. We don't want to go somewhere else in the application and then do something like account number is what is it? Account number is equals to whatever, right? We don't want to do that. We only want to use the set account number method to set your account number somewhere else in the application. And in this sort of instance, you probably wouldn't even use a set account number again because rarely does your account number change once you've created an account. I can't really think of an instance right now where you'd use that. So again, you could probably omit this in this banking application. I just wanted to show you what a getter and setter is and how to set it and that kind of thing given an application, right? So yeah, we explained variables, classes, methods, constructors, access modifiers, and packages. So yeah, I want to also go into some other keywords, right? So like I said, you have your static modifiers that control visibility. So right now, nothing outside of this class can use or like see, quote unquote, these account numbers, right? They're only visible in this class. If it was public, then outside, classes that, sort of imported this class can go and directly modify and change these other variables, but they can't because they're marked as private. So only, members within this particular class can see this, right? Um, okay. And I want to also talk about a method, a very popular way of sort of writing this out in a way or sort of maybe defining your account information. Like you might want to, you know, have some sort of message like, hey, this is your account number and this is your balance, that kind of thing. You usually see that at some sort of ATM, right? And, in applications in the Java world, you usually use a method called toString, right? And again, it sort of, I was going to explain this override thing, but it does the code completion. This is why I love IntelliJ. And basically, what this override does is an annotation. And I'll explain annotations in another video, but basically, they're just ways of sort of depicting or sort of, telling Java what to do with the code below, right? So in this case, it's telling us to override this toString method, which is, comes standard in the Java language, but you can override it to sort of, do what you want, right? So an override, just to explain a little more about that, it's used to indicate that a method in a subclass is intended to override a method in its superclass. So this helps prevent errors by ensuring like the method and the method name and the signature match exactly. So in our class, we don't have any examples of overriding methods, but we could imagine like a scenario where we have like a superclass called like account holder and a subclass called premium account holder. And the premium account holder class could override the get balance method to sort of like indicate additional calculations based on the account holder's status. I'll go more in depth into that. Like I said, this is a breadth of first approach. We're going breadth. We're not going really deep into things. I just wanted to just show you a lot of these things first, right? So what we could do in the toString method, we could like sort of like take this out and do something like this. We could say account number, right? And have a little space and do plus, and then account number, or you can just say get account number, right? And then has a balance of. Let's make sure we have spaces on both sides because when you concatenate or when you put things together, just in case you don't know what concatenate means, when you add things together and not really adding, you're just joining two strings or two other objects together to make usually in programming we use strings. We do this with strings, so yeah, we're just joining these strings together. Yeah, so has a balance of, and then we can say a $sign with a space, and then get balance. And there it is. There's our toString method. I also want to explain some other, special keywords, right? We have extends and we have super. So I'm going to create another class right now, right? I'm going to create another class because you're going to see extends and super a whole lot in Java programming. So I'm going to create a class, and this is going to be called a checking account. I hope you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Right, okay, so we have a checking account, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put extends, this is a special keyword, account, right? Don't worry about this red line, we're gonna take care of that. And what we could do is we could do something like this, private, double, and then we could say overdraft limit. Overdraft is like one word. It's not a limit, at least I think. And then again, we can do our normal, we can do generate constructor. So we can just say right click, and then we go to generate, and we go to constructor. All right. And I'm gonna explain all this in a second. And then we go to generate, and then we do getters and setters. All right, on our overdraft limit, boom. Okay, okay, so there's a couple new keywords we've seen here. I explained public and private. Um, Again, private is, having access to just the scope of the class. Public would other classes and packages would be able to access it, right? There's another one called protected, in which only other classes within the same package can access it, but public, pretty much every other part of the application can see and access it, right? So yeah, basically we have these two other keywords, right? We have extends and we have super. What do those do, right? So in our example, I provided, we had a class we have a class called checking account right now. And this extends account, the account class. So when we create a new instance of checking account class, we need to set the values of the sort of the account number and the balance variables, which are defined in the account class, right? So to do this, we use the super keyword. We did the super keyword. We use that to call the constructor of an account class and pass that the account number and the balance value as arguments, which we're doing here, right? And by calling the constructor of our superclass in this way, we can ensure that the account number and the balance variables are properly initialized in the new instance of the checking account class. So using the super keyword in this way is particularly useful because, like, when you want to inherit properties from the superclass, which is the account class in this instance, right? When you want to inherit properties from that to the superclass and customize their behavior, like in this class, which is the subclass, you can do that by calling the constructor of the superclass using the super keyword. So we can ensure that at all times that the properties of the superclass are properly initialized while you're allowing for the customization of the behavior in the subclass, right? So in general, the super keyword is used to access members of the superclass from within the subclass. Again, the superclass is the account, subclass is the checking account, because the checking account is a type of account. Now I'm going to explain the extends keyword, right? I probably should have explained that first, but whatever. So the extends keyword, right? It basically tells Java that this class right here is extending behavior, or basically inheriting the behavior from this class here. So the class on the left is getting all the variables and attributes that the class on the right of the extends keyword already has, right? So I don't have to go and define account number and balance here because I'm extending account, and Java knows that, hey, I need to include all of the sort of variables, the data, and the behavior as well. So you'll have access to the other methods that are included in the account, which is the get balance, set balance, and the get a number and set account number as well. But you can also modify that existing behavior in a checking account, which makes a different type of account, by adding this overdraft variable, right? And creating behavior for that, getting the overdraft limit and setting the overdraft limit as well. So that's like how you can extend, a class in Java. And we'll talk about that because, there's 4 pillars of object-oriented programming. There's encapsulation, there's inheritance, there's polymorphism, and there's abstraction, right? So, and I'm going to explain that, but this concept right here of using the extends keyword, that's inheritance, right? So just for an example, like, let's just say you have a dad. I mean, you're listening to this, you probably have a dad, but like, unless you're creating some lab or something, but, let's just say you look so much like your dad, right? So you inherited features from your dad. Like, you might have the same nose, you guys might have the same height, you might have the same eye color, your skin tone or whatever might be the same, your hair texture or whatever attributes your dad has that are visible. You might see, you might even have some other, ability that your dad might have that you might have inherited as well. Like, you might be really good at math. You inherited that. That's, doing math. That could be a behavior that you inherited. So like, if we're trying to model that into, object-oriented programming in the example of Java, we would have a person class, right? And a dad or a father could extend a person, right? And then a child could extend dad, right? So a person, you might give it some basic attributes like hair color, eye color, height, this, that, right? And a dad would probably have some other attributes like, I don't know, something, but I don't know, like a beard, right? That a person didn't have. And because you're inheriting you're inheriting your dad's attributes, you're getting that beard, but you're still a person, right? And one more thing about inheritance and about extending keywords. We can only extend one class in Java. There's other classes that allow you to do multiple inheritance. I mean, there's other programming languages that allow you to do multiple inheritance, like I think C++ allows that. But in Java, you can only extend one class at a time. But there's another concept of interfaces, which we'll talk about later, which you can implement. We don't extend, we implement interfaces. And you can implement as many interfaces as your heart desires. But I'm just going to show you that you can't extend more than one. Let's say we try to do rewards program. And then there's no autocomplete because Java knows that you can't. You're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you typing after account? There should be nothing there. So you see, I can't go or like even do a comma or something. Like, it's not allowed. It's not allowed. You see the red line won't go away unless I delete it. So you can only extend one class at a time. So yeah. So basically that's it for my object-oriented basics in Java. I want to go more in depth into each topic. I just wanted to show you how a lot of these things work and how you construct a class in like the real world, applications that you might be encountering, whether it be in work or open source projects or whatever, wherever you might encounter some sort of large scale application in some capacity. This is what you'd probably see, like longer or more sort of detailed versions of this. Again, I didn't want to bog you down with too many details or like a super huge class. I wanted to make a very rudimentary, simple example. So having that in mind, I hope this was able to explain a lot of the basic concepts about object-oriented programming in Java. And yeah, if you have any other questions or comments, leave some comments below. You can also just reach out to me. I think I have my email in my bio of my channel. And yeah, just leave a comment below if you have some questions or comments or concerns, and I'll answer them as quickly as I can. And I hope this was of value to you watching this. And like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.